project we're going to be using the Garden Folly stamp set. So the sentiments are: friendship is another word for love, thinking of you, you're an amazing friend, and for a very special person. So this project is off the page, so it's going to be mixed media. I'm going to use my Zeta watercolors again, but I've got this MDF tag that's 10 by 5 inches and a sheet of fancy paper here. So this one has kind of a distressed look to it. Then the stamp itself fits perfectly into the center of the tag. So to cover the tag, we're going to place it down onto our sheet of 12 by 12 cardstock, and we're going to trace around the edges of this. Okay, so using my pencil, just going to work my way around and then marking the center point as well of the tag. Then to trim it, you could use a scissors or you could use a craft knife and a ruler. So I'm going to use the craft knife and ruler. I'm going to line up the ruler on the inside of the line that I've just marked, and then I'm going to take my craft knife and just trim away the excess paper, being careful of the fingers as you do this. So move that then to the side because you're going to use that for another project. And then we want to trim off the top part. So again, laying down the ruler on the inside of the line that we've just made and trim away the excess. And then we're going to do the sides of the tag as well. So this sheet of paper is just a scrap piece of paper that I had in my collection. So never throw away scraps because you never know when you get to use them or when they come in handy. So just clear away all these little bits and pieces from our workspace, and then we're going to remove the circular part that we marked. It doesn't have to be too neat because when it's on the MDF you can go back in and you can neaten it up by either trimming it again or using a pen or pencil, push it through the hole, move it around, and it will smooth out the edges. So being careful now just to go around the edges, and then we're going to pop that out. Okay, so that's our cover for our tag. So we're going to, like in our other projects, we're going to play with this and we're going to distress it up. So that is the Ranger Weathered Wood Distress pad, and then with our foam pad again, we're just going to go around the edges first of all and just start at the top. Not too much, you don't want to come in too hard on this. So we're just going to add it tones. So the weathered wood matches the tones of the blue in the paper, and there's a little bit of gold in that as well. So working our way around the edge and seeing then the distress colour. So we'll speed this process up a little bit. Okay, so we have finished adding the colour, so we're going to attach it now to our MDF base. I'm using just like a PVA glue, and I'm using the fine point applicator. So I'm going to add it to the MDF. You can add it to the paper if you prefer, but I just want to get it close to the edge of the MDF. So just going to work it up you don't need that much. So then just a little bit along the center of it as well, because obviously when you press down the paper this is going to spread out, so you don't want the paper too wet. So simply line up your paper, start at the corner, press it down, and when you're happy with the position, there, a little bit of an adjustment, then you just press it down gently, and because you didn't use a lot of glue it's not going to come out of the edges. And then just give it a little tap to make sure the bottom's lined up. So that's it there. It'll just take a couple of minutes to dry. Give it another pressing by putting it over if you don't handle the paper too much. So that's it in place. So then we're going to move on then to the next step. So what I want to do with this as well, I'm happy with the inking that we've done on the edges, but I think that it could do with a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a bit more kind of shading on the corners now that it's on. So I want to darken up the just certain areas of it. So we're going to start up at the corners. So I'm going to use the dark fray burlap as well. So just put a little bit in here, so it just gives it a more weathered look, a more lived in appeal, as they say. We're going to be placing our image in the center, so we don't have to worry about that. So just putting a little bit in on the edges up at the top and blending it in just gently there, bring it in, and then we are going to move it on then to the bottom corner. So a little bit there. Like I said, you can play around with it. There's no hard and fast rules about where you put it, just where you think you want it to look, because we're going to be putting a sentiment down as well, so I do want to leave room under where we're going to put the picture. So just dabbing a little bit more in there gives it the aged look, gives it a more distressed look, you know. So have fun with the papers. So I think we put a little bit here. I'm nearly done now. I don't want to overdo it. You don't want to end up with a situation where you've coloured the whole sheet and it'll just take away the look of the project. So a little bit there. Yeah, I'm happy with that now, so I'll put away that. But then I'm going to go in, I think, with a little bit of the Gildermax. So this is the brass colour. Just putting a little bit out on my messy mat here, rubbing it in, because I want to just have the bare minimum on my fingers when I'm putting it in. So just right on the edge here, just going to work my way around. So I'm just going to lay it down. So because the top part here is going to have ribbon attached, I think it would be nice to just saturate it a little bit on this corner. But then I'm going to work my way around the project and I will speed this up. Okay, now we're going to stamp our image. So I have just got a piece of A5 cardstock here because we're going to be cutting this anyway. I'm going to use my Tim Holtz stamping platform. So pop that down, secure the edges of the cardstock with the magnets. You can move them in and out and around just to keep it in place. So just going to adjust this. Yeah, that should be fine. Then we're going to remove the stamp from the carrier sheet. So you take off the protective film off the front, but then to remove the stamp, pull the plastic away from the backing sheet. Don't pull at the stamp. Then we're just going to lay it down here, just line it up there in the center, and going to pick that up. So we're going to stamp it down just very gently to pick up the stamp. Then if the paper lifts, just put it back down with the magnets. Then I'm going to take our ink pad. I'm going to use the Stays On ink pad for this because we're going to be using watercolors. So the Stays On is a solvent based ink and it's not going to run or smudge when you use it with watercolor. So always check your ink pads when it comes to watercolor. Don't use dye or the water based, or you will smudge it with your watercolors. So press that down, and then when we lift this up, then hopefully we have a clear stamped image. Perfect. Now if it doesn't stamp, you can go back and add more ink. I've done that a couple of times just to get a nice sharp colour on it, but I sped it up here in the video. So we have our image, so then we're going to go in and colour this then with our watercolours. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tape this down just to stop it moving about, and it also means as well then I can get a clean edge on it. So just place it here, and just make sure that there's nothing underneath your paper. So putting some masking tape at the top and then at the bottom, and then we're going to go in then with our watercolors to start painting. I've got a number of brushes, so I have a mid-sized brush here, so I'm going to wet it, and I'm going to pick up some of the blue colour. This is for the sky. I'm going to add it to my palette, bring in a bit more water to water it down. I want to put up a light blue wash first. This will be a base then, and I can go back in later and I can add more colour then into the horizon for it. So I'm going to start in the centre, so we'll colour in the sky image here. I'll speed this up a little bit for you and I'll be back to you in a moment. Okay, we've jumped ahead here. I've just added the blue to the sky, I've added the green to the grass, and I've added some of the darker green just to the trees that are out on the horizon line. I did a light grey wash over the arches, and I'm just going to go in here now because I want to add some shading to the bricks. So we have a light grey colour wash down on the bricks. I'm taking up some of the black and I'm going in to where there would be shade and shadows on the bricks, and I'm just following the lines of the bricks that are in the stamp, and just where I think there might be some shading or shadow, just working my way down and adding it in. So behind some of the vines, near the edges of the bricks as well, that's where you'll get your shadow. So if it's too dark, don't worry, you can go back with a little bit of water and you can blend it in and lighten the tone. So some areas of shading will be a lot darker than you would have, so where the light might hit it, then you would have a lighter tone. But take your time, work your way around the brick, see where you would like to add your shadow, and if at some stage you've added some and it's just too much or too heavy, just wet your brush, go back over it, wet it, dab it with some tissue to lift off the colour, and then go back in. So I'm working my way down now, down the bricks, coming down then to where the foliage is going to meet the grass, and then going in as well behind where we have some of the vines. And then we have the pillars, so you'll have some shading on the pillars under the cornices there, so adding a bit to the top and to the bottom. And when it dries, as I said, if it's a bit too dark, I'll just go back in with the brush and some more water to water it down, tone it down. So working our way, we've our window arch here as well. Now you notice with the blue I didn't colour the whole way out to the edges of the pages. If you see the other project for the Country Walk stamp, I did colour to the edge of the pages because I was going to cut it, but I know with this, because it's narrow and because I'm going to be sticking this on the tag, I'm going to be cutting very very close to where the stamp finishes, so there wasn't any need for me to go out further with the blue. So working away here now, I've come up to the top of the brick, so slightly darker, and there, and you just work blending it in like that. So of course I'm using the greys for the bricks as well. I mean, you could go in with a light taupe colours, have sandstone bricks, or even go in with red. You could have red bricks. I like this because I have seen in Parnell Park here in Ireland something quite similar, and Belvedere Gardens as well have a garden folly, so that was the inspiration behind this stamp here. So a folly is just a structure built for nothing but aesthetics, and many estates and landlords had them many years ago just as a decorative element, and a lot have fallen into disrepair, so this folly here has seen better days. So right, working my way down on the right hand side, nearly there now, just adding in my shading. It's a bit darker on this side, And near the end of this now, and again I don't want to forget the pillars because we do need shading down the cornices where they get weathered as well. You could go in with some greens and add some moss on this, or you could distress it further. I'm just going to stick with just the light and the shade on the brick. So I think that's looking pretty good at the moment. Now, so we also have on this other areas, so don't forget we've got our footpath to do and still more greenery, but I'm going to now add a little bit of water to the brush here, and I'm just going to blend in the shading a bit more, just to get rid of those harsh lines that you sometimes get with the watercolours. So working my way down the pillar, yeah, and anywhere you see any spots that might be a bit dark, don't be afraid to go back in and work on those again. Okay, so we're going to move on now. So a smaller brush, I've gone in here now, so this is a darker green. I'm going to finish off any foliage that may be in the background, just colour them in, and then I can go back in again with another green, you know, to add some shading and tone to it. You can go in with some browns, you could do an autumn scene either, you could go in and absolutely colour all these trees and the grasses, you know, in the brown tones. So this is like spring. You could do winter, you could do snow, you could add into it your, if you have any of those snow pens and those foams, add them in to it and just change the whole look of the stamp. You know, have fun, play around with it, and make it your own. Or you could decoupage, you could paint this and then you could do a second one where the arch is then decoupaged down over it, just for some dimension. And in the Wishing Well stamp project that I have a video for here as well, I've done that. I've decoupaged up the Wishing Well to give that dimension on the card. Okay, so I'm going to do the footpath now. Again, as with my country walk, I'm just going to use a nice sand colour here. So I'm going to do a light wash, and we're going to work from the back out to the front. So just add a little bit more water to water it down, because I only want a light wash really of this. So working from the back, so this will be the base layer, because we're going to go back in and we're going to add some darker tones to add some shading and form to the footpath. So bring it through to the front, so just light wash, bring it back in, pick up a bit more colour. So I think this is come along here. Now this cardstock as well, it is not watercolour cardstock, so I'm not adding too much water to it. So you want your colours kind of, well, dry, for want of a better word, by lifting off the excess water off your brush. So coming in now with a bit of a darker tone of the brown here, just add a little bit of shading where the grass would meet the path. Now these Zealer watercolour paints are available from burtongertz.co.uk. Absolutely amazing little watercolour set. Comes with its own little palette there as well. It comes with 2 water brushes, so if you want to paint on the go, you can use them. I don't really work with water brushes myself too much, because I feel that, you know, if you're using cardstock, that they do saturate the page a little bit too much. So I'm just going to stick with my own individual little brushes here. So I'm going to come in now. This is one of the very, very dark greens. I'm going to pop that down. I have a little too much water there. And then we've got some shrubbery there in front of the arch. So just going to add a little bit of green to that. And then we're going to go along and we're going to add some colour to the vines. So it will just be using the green on that, and I'm going to use kind of a fuchsia red as well. So I'm going to pick up the colour, so I'll speed this part up a little bit and I'll speak to you in a moment. Okay, so we're going to trim away the excess paper that is around. Now, just going to use the scissors because I'm going to be distressing basically the paper, and it doesn't have to be too even, so literally just going to trim up to leaving a couple of millimeters either side of the stamp, so trimming it down because we want the piece of paper to fit inside of the tag itself. So take a little bit more off the top, I think. There, right, so we just get rid of the excess paper. Okay, so just going to check. So as you can see, perfect size, but I want to distress, so I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way by using the back of a scissors and literally just tearing it across the cardstock. You got to be careful though that you don't rip down into your coloured image. So done one side, literally just down the four sides. It tears quite easy. Now this is a sharp scissor, so please, if you're doing this, be careful of your fingers. And fourth side, and then one more side to go. Just going to rub off any of the loose fibres as well. There's you can leave them on if you want, but I like to tidy up the edges. Okay, so now you see up the corner here now it is kind of blank, and I want to curl that in, but I want to add a little bit of distressing. So because of the blue of the sky and the grey of the brick, I'm going to be using the weathered wood distressing. Not too heavy, I'm just lightly brushing along the distressed edge. Because the paper is raw, it's really going to pick up the colour quite well, and it just takes the kind of the raw look off it, you know. So just work your way around, don't be afraid, go in a little bit on the corners as well. What's going to happen as well now, I'm going to be curling back some of the corners, so it doesn't matter if it gets a bit too much ink on it. So working along the bottom, because of the raw edge as well, I'll be lifting it up and just giving it a bit extra along the distressed edge. So up to the other side now, so we're nearly done with this. I've gone in a little bit there on the bottom corners of it, you know, but the top right and top left, the top left and the bottom right corners are going to be actually curled back, so we're giving a little bit more ink on those, and then we are going to flip this over, and I'm going to, where I know it's going to be curled back, right, I'm going to add more ink on the back of that so that the cardstock doesn't show as a stark white when I curl it. So adding that there, coming down a fair bit now, just to give us options when we're curling for how far down we want to go. So a bit more on the bottom, and yeah, I think that'll be perfect. Right, so I have enough ink on that, so again putting the lids back on the ink and using our messy mat, bit of gilding wax I think we'll put in there, but again I don't want to use too much of this now, so I'm just going to rub off if there's any still a bit of wet ink on the edges, because I want to add the gilding wax more or less on the frayed edges. So putting a bit on the messy mat, and then just to have enough on my finger, because a little bit goes a long way. So you see what I'm doing there, I'm just rubbing it along the raw edge, not too heavy, just enough down here as well, because that's going to be curled back and that will show. We'll do the other corner as well. Now, so this is the copper colour. I love the copper colour, and I'm sticking with this colour to go with the collection. So there's 6 videos that I'm doing for the 6 stamps from a Country Walk collection. So you'll see me use this Gilded Wax in a lot of the projects. So just have a look there. I might as well use up a bit of Gilded Wax here, so just rubbing it there along the frayed edges, and it's quite good. Get a little bit more. If this does dry out, you could use a bit of a heat gun to try and melt it back a bit, because it is a wax, but it does smell a bit though. You know, it's like that old-fashioned furniture polish that you would have had. It's a long time since I've used any, but it does have that kind of a strong smell. So it's probably best if you had a little bit of ventilation in the room when you're working with it. So just add a little bit to the corners here on the part, and I think it's starting to look quite well now. It's giving me the distressed look. So then just give it a burnish, and that it's like it polishes it up, and it seals it, you know. But it is quite messy, so make sure you have this done before you put it anywhere near your card. And then put away the messy mat, and you know, just wipe down your surface, because some flakes of it do actually tend to come off. And that's our picture now, ready to add it to our base. Before I do add it though, I do want to curl back the top corners, so I'm just going to use a pencil, and I'm just going to use that to wrap it around and give it a curl, not too tight. Give it a little wiggle there in your hands, and that should be sufficient enough. Then remove the pencil, and then your card should stay like that. And then we're just going to flip it around and repeat that down on the bottom right hand corner as well. Not as large a turn now, so really just kind of like a half turn of the pencil, just to curl that up. And yeah, I think this is ready now to place, and we can go now and we can assemble our project and add the elements. Okay, so let's put this together. So I've got here some flowers from my stash. So we have our MDF board that we covered earlier, and then we have our tag. So I'm going to use some of the thick foam pads on the back of this to attach this to our MDF board. So this is easy enough to do. Just going to kind of tilt it a little bit and move it up. So play around with the position to where you're happy, and then you can just press it down, and that will stay in place. So I want to add the sentiment, and from the set there, I think I'm going to pick the Friendship is Another Word for Love stamp. So take that off and put that on our acrylic block. I'm going to put it kind of up near the top, because I want to, when I stamp it, put it quite close to the edge of our topper. Some black ink here. This is water based, and using this because I'm not going to be using any watercolour near it, so it won't smudge. So then press it up under the picture, put that in place, and as you can see, it's quite a sharp stamp, so you get a good imprint there of your sentiment. Then just give it a little clean off before we put that back on the carrier sheet. This protects them from dust and lint, but if they ever lose their stickiness, just run them under a cold tap, let it dry naturally, and you pop it back on. Okay, so now we're just going to work at assembling the flowers and pieces around it. So I've got the liquid glue for some of the flatter elements. So this is just a paper, of course I think it's from Petaloo, that I have in my stash. So just really just play around with the placement, pop that down. Now because we used Gilded Wax in some places, it mightn't adhere, so put plenty of glue into all the different spaces. And then I've got my 3D gel. This is Collal 3D gel. I'm just using this behind all the flowers, put them in place, so it will allow you to move them around for a while before they dry. It takes it about 15 minutes and it would be well stuck, like they won't move after 15 minutes. That's why I like the 3D gel. So for the thicker flowers, if some have a bit of wire in the back of them, it will still hold them in place. So I'll put this little bud down here. So I think that's everything for the bottom. Then we will move up to the top corner. So again, just using the liquid glue with the fine point bottle, placing that over on the corner, and then we're just going to go in with our flowers. So put the large one here on right behind the curl of the paper, and then this is just a simple paper curled rolls placed on it and then just working around placing down some other flowers. So some of you are probably wondering why I'm not using my quilling flowers. Just for a change, I thought that I would just use some of the smaller little blooms, but if you want to get some of my paper flowers, you'll find them on my Etsy shop. So I have an Etsy as well, which has all my digital downloads and cutting files for any of your electronic cutting machines, and of course some of my dies are still available in shops. So so that's everything that we've put onto the project. Putting the glues to the side. Then I have these are kind of liquid pearls. Absolutely love these. One bottle, I think here, I've had it 2 years, and it will do me, I think, for another 2 years. So rather than putting gems or pearls on the project, I'm just going to prime them up on the tissue just to clean them, and then going in at various places around the project, I'm just going to add small little dots, little hints, and if you don't touch them, just let them dry. Say about 15 minutes again. They set hard, so just clean the bottle. If it gets a bit gloopy, just clean the nib as you go along. So putting these in, like I said, you can go a small dab, you could go a larger pearl on it if you want it, but do clean off the nib before you put the lid back on, because it does tend to clog, although some of the lids have got a little kind of a spike in them that goes down into the nozzle to keep it clear. And as I said, I have these bottles nearly 2 years and still working as good as the day I bought them. So stock up on them if you do see them in the shops, because this one, the colour of this is avocado, and then I have the gold one there as well. So that gold one is called Copper Pearl actually, so it is copper as well, and they're from Ranger. So check out the Ranger website or craft stores, and you should be able to still pick these up. They're great as well if you want to add gems or little accents to ribbon, because once they dry to it, you ain't getting it off. They soak in, and even here on the gilding wax, it will stay in place. That won't come off either. So if you do make a little mess, like you have a little tail or straggle, just use your craft knife, put it back in over, and before it dries up, and that tightens it up. And another couple of little ones here now just to finish off, and I think then job's a good one, as they say. So you gotta know when to stop, and I tend to not know when to stop, because I just find it very therapeutic doing work like this. I think the finer details between the colouring and adding the final details, I think it really brings the project together. And if you do take your time and add in these accents, or step away and come back maybe after half an hour, but yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Do need to let these dry before you work with them, because if they smudge, it's very hard to get them off. But I'm going to add the ribbon to the top to finish this off. So I have a little bit of burlap from Canvas Core, and I have some muted gold ribbon. Sorry, now it's a bit off screen there, but I'm just looping it through and then opening it up and just threading the ends of the ribbon through. I'm not tying a knot so that it can be removed easily at another stage, so just pull the ends through and then I'm just going to give it a little bit of a tug, then that will tighten it up. You could put a loop on this if you wanted to hang it on a wall, or if you had a plaque sticker, you know, you could stick that on the back, but or you could tie the knots in the end of the ribbon as well, and you could hang that. But I think it's a lovely little decor piece, or you could add it as a tag to a gift, and it's a little keepsake. So there you have it. So that's our little plaque using the Garden Folly stamp set from the Country Walk stamp collection, available now through Hobby Maker and burtongertz.co.uk. So check out my other videos, and I will see you in my next one. Thanks for watching.